The moment you decide never to give up is the moment your entire life transforms. As you're listening to this, I want you to feel something stirring inside you. That fire, that unstoppable force that's been there all along, waiting for you to unleash it. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is about rewiring how your brain processes challenges, setbacks, and obstacles. This is about creating a victory mindset that becomes your default operating system. I've spent decades studying the psychology of achievement, working with world champions, business titans, and everyday heroes who've overcome incredible odds. And I've discovered something remarkable. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who don't isn't talent, resources, or luck. It's the mindset. It's the lens through which they view the world and themselves. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to transform setbacks into stepping stones? How do they take what looks like certain defeat and somehow extract victory from it? These individuals don't have superhuman abilities. They've simply mastered a way of thinking that you can learn too. I remember working with a young athlete who had been told by every doctor that his career was over after a devastating injury. The medical evidence was clear. The scans showed permanent damage. Everyone, his coaches, his family, even his teammates, had accepted this reality. Everyone except him. When I asked him why he refused to give up when all the evidence suggested he should, he looked at me with fierce intensity and said, "Because the doctors can only tell me about my body's limitations. They don't know about my spirit's capacity." 18 months later, he was competing again at an elite level. The doctors called it a medical miracle. I call it the power of a victory mindset. What would change in your life if you adopted this same perspective? What if you decided, right now, that giving up simply isn't an option? Not because you're stubborn or unrealistic, but because you understand that persistence is the ultimate competitive advantage. The victory mindset isn't about positive thinking alone. It's not about denying reality or pretending challenges don't exist. It's about facing reality head-on, but refusing to let that reality define your limits. As Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, powerfully observed, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that precious gap between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That's where the victory mindset is born. And today, we're going to expand that space together, creating room for choices that serve your highest potential. Think about the last time you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was a professional setback, a health crisis, a relationship breakdown, or a financial struggle. How quickly did your mind jump to the worst-case scenario? How fast did you begin calculating your escape routes? How soon did you start constructing the narrative about why it was okay to give up? Don't judge yourself for this. It's human nature. Our brains are wired for survival, not success. They're designed to protect us from danger, not push us toward our dreams. The brain's primary directive is to keep you safe, not to make you exceptional. This is why creating a victory mindset requires intention, practice, and a fundamental rewiring of your default responses. It's about training yourself to see opportunities where others see obstacles, to find the path when others see only roadblocks, and to keep moving forward when every instinct is screaming at you to retreat. The good news? This isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming more of who you were always meant to be. It's about stripping away the limitations you've accepted and revealing the unstoppable force that's been within you from the beginning. I want to share with you 7 fundamental principles of the victory mindset. 7 shifts in thinking that will transform how you approach challenges and setbacks. These aren't theoretical concepts or feel-good platitudes. These are battle-tested strategies used by the world's highest achievers to overcome seemingly impossible odds. The first principle is what I call outcome independence. This might sound counterintuitive. Aren't we supposed to be focused on outcomes? Isn't that what victory is all about? Not exactly. The most resilient people I've worked with maintain an unwavering commitment to their vision, while simultaneously detaching from rigid expectations about how that vision must materialize. Let me explain with a story. Several years ago, I worked with a technology entrepreneur who had poured 5 years and his entire life savings into a startup. The vision was revolutionary. A platform that could dramatically improve medical diagnostics using artificial intelligence. But despite the brilliance of the idea and the team's relentless efforts, they kept hitting wall after wall. Investors pulled out. Key team members left. Technical challenges mounted. Most people would have given up, and honestly, no one would have blamed him if he had. But instead of abandoning the vision, he simply became flexible about the path. He pivoted the business model 3 times. He explored 8 different technological approaches. He rebuilt his team twice. 4 years later, his company was acquired for 9 figures, and the technology is now saving lives in hospitals across the country. When I asked him how he managed to persist when everything seemed to be falling apart, he said something I'll never forget. I never confused the map with the destination. When one route became blocked, I simply found another. The only real failure would have been to stop moving toward the goal. This is outcome independence in action. It's the ability to stay committed to your vision while remaining flexible about how you get there. It's understanding that the path to victory rarely resembles a straight line. Instead, it looks more like a winding river, finding its way around obstacles, sometimes doubling back, but always moving toward the ocean. Ask yourself, where in your life have you confused the map with the destination? Where have you given up on a dream because your initial approach didn't work? What possibilities might open up if you remained committed to the outcome while becoming flexible about the process? The second principle of the victory mindset is strategic suffering. Again, this might sound strange or even masochistic, but the ability to reframe suffering, to see it as a necessary component of growth rather than something to be avoided, is a distinguishing characteristic of those who refuse to give up. Admiral Jim Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for over 7 years, enduring torture, isolation, and unimaginable hardship. When asked how he survived when many others didn't, Stockdale answered that has become known as the Stockdale paradox. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. In other words, those who survive and ultimately thrive are not the optimists who believe everything will magically work out. They're the realists who acknowledge their suffering while simultaneously maintaining an unshakable belief in their ability to prevail despite it. This perspective transforms how you experience difficult times. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me? How is this preparing me for what's next? What strengths am I developing through this challenge that I couldn't develop any other way?" I've worked with elite military units, world-class athletes, and business leaders who have all come to the same conclusion. The capacity to endure strategic suffering, to lean into discomfort purposefully rather than avoid it reflexively, is what separates those who achieve lasting success from those who plateau. Think about it this way. A muscle only grows when it encounters resistance. If you never push against something heavy, your muscles have no reason to adapt and become stronger. The same principle applies to your mindset, your mental and emotional resilience. Your capacity to persevere grows only when you encounter resistance. This doesn't mean seeking out unnecessary suffering or staying in truly harmful situations. It means recognizing that the challenges that feel most difficult are often the ones that contain the greatest opportunity for growth. It means understanding that discomfort is the price of admission for an extraordinary life. The third principle is identity evolution. Your identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are is one of the most powerful forces shaping your behavior. We all have identity stories running in the background of our consciousness. Narratives like, I'm not a math person, I'm shy, I'm not athletic, or I always quit when things get tough. These identity stories act as invisible boundaries, determining what you believe is possible and, consequently, what actions you'll take when faced with challenges. The victory mindset requires a willingness to consciously evolve these stories, to deliberately rewrite your identity in service of your highest aspirations. Consider the case of a client I'll call Sarah. When she first came to me, she described herself as not entrepreneurial. She had a business idea she was passionate about, but she'd convinced herself that she lacked the risk tolerance and business acumen to pursue it. Her identity story was that she was a good employee, not a founder. We began a deliberate process of identity evolution. Instead of trying to transform overnight from employee to entrepreneur, a shift too dramatic to be believable to her subconscious mind, we created transitional identities. First, she began seeing herself as an employee who thinks like an owner. Then, an innovative problem solver who creates value. Eventually, someone who builds solutions to important problems. Each of these identity shifts was subtle but significant, expanding her sense of what was possible while still feeling authentic. Within 2 years, she had launched her business, raised initial funding, and was leading a team of 7 people. The woman who once believed she wasn't entrepreneurial now confidently introduces herself as the founder and CEO of a growing company. The key insight here is that your identity isn't fixed. It's malleable. And one of the most powerful things you can do when facing persistent challenges is to ask, who would I need to become to overcome this? What identity would make the actions I need to take feel natural rather than forced? As the great Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Your beliefs about yourself, your identity stories, create self-fulfilling prophecies. The victory mindset requires consciously choosing identity stories that empower rather than limit you. The fourth principle of the victory mindset is strategic optimism. This isn't blind positivity or wishful thinking. It's a disciplined practice of directing your attention toward possibilities rather than problems, toward resources rather than deficits. Our brains have evolved with a powerful negativity bias. We're wired to spot threats and problems because, from an evolutionary standpoint, failing to notice a threat could be fatal. But this same tendency that kept our ancestors alive can keep us from thriving in the modern world. We naturally over-index on what's going wrong and under-index on what's going right. Strategic optimism is the antidote to this bias. It's the deliberate practice of asking questions like, what's working that I can build on? What resources do I have that I haven't fully leveraged? What opportunities does this challenge create that wouldn't exist otherwise? I witnessed the power of strategic optimism while working with a manufacturing company that was facing potential bankruptcy. A major competitor had entered the market with a revolutionary new process that made the company's products virtually obsolete overnight. The executive team was understandably focused on the problem, analyzing the competitor's technology, calculating how long they could stay solvent, and planning layoffs. When I began working with them, I shifted their focus from problems to possibilities. Instead of asking, how do we compete with this new technology? We began asking, what unique strengths do we have that our competitor doesn't? What do we know about our customers that could lead to solutions beyond the technology itself? This mental shift, from problem orientation to possibility orientation, led to a breakthrough. The company realized that while their technology was now inferior, their deep customer relationships and intimate understanding of client needs were superior. They pivoted from being a product company to being a solutions company, using the competitor's technology through a strategic partnership, but wrapping it in consulting services, training, and implementation support that the competitor couldn't match. 3 years later, the company that had been on the brink of bankruptcy was more profitable than ever, having transformed a technological threat into a strategic opportunity. That's the power of strategic optimism. The fifth principle is purposeful discomfort. This builds on the concept of strategic suffering, but focuses specifically on the practice of deliberately seeking out situations that stretch your comfort zone. The victory mindset isn't built during comfortable times. It's forged in moments when you're operating at the edge of your capabilities. Navy SEALs have a saying, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable." They understand that the ability to function effectively while experiencing discomfort is a trainable skill. And it's a skill that transfers across domains. The mental toughness developed through physical challenges becomes available during emotional challenges. The resilience built during professional setbacks creates resources for personal crises. I encourage clients to establish a regular practice of purposeful discomfort, to identify activities that stretch them beyond their comfort zones and engage in these activities consistently. This might mean cold plunges, public speaking, difficult conversations, physical challenges, or any activity that evokes the thought, "I'm not sure I can do this." With repetition, you discover an empowering truth. Discomfort itself cannot harm you. It's just a sensation, a set of physical and emotional signals that your brain interprets as threatening. But when you learn to move toward these sensations rather than away from them, you expand your capacity to handle increasingly difficult challenges. This principle transforms your relationship with fear. Instead of seeing fear as a sign to retreat, you begin to recognize it as a signal that you're growing, expanding, becoming more than you were before. As the writer Karen Salmonson elegantly put it, "The best things in life are often waiting for you at the exit ramp of your comfort zone." The sixth principle of the victory mindset is radical responsibility. This is the unwavering commitment to taking 100% responsibility for your life and its outcomes, regardless of circumstances. It's the refusal to spend energy on blame, excuses, or justifications, not because these might not be valid, but because they're not useful. Let me be clear. Taking radical responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for circumstances beyond your control. It doesn't mean denying the reality of systemic issues, prejudice, or bad luck. It simply means focusing exclusively on what you can control rather than what you can't. I worked with an executive who was passed over for a promotion in what appeared to be a biased decision. There was compelling evidence that gender discrimination had played a role. She had every right to be angry and resentful. She had legitimate grounds for a legal challenge. But she recognized that while these responses might be justified, they wouldn't necessarily serve her long-term goals. Instead of focusing on the injustice, she focused on her response to it. She sought feedback about areas where she could genuinely improve. She expanded her network within the organization. She became more strategic about documenting her accomplishments and building relationships with key decision-makers. 18 months later, she was promoted to an even higher position than the one she had initially sought. The victory came not from fighting against the unfairness of her situation, but from taking radical responsibility for her response to it. This principle isn't about letting others off the hook for harmful behavior. It's about refusing to give anyone or anything the power to determine your ultimate outcomes. It's about recognizing that while you can't control everything that happens to you, you maintain absolute control over how you respond. And in that response lies your power. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said nearly 2,000 years ago, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This ancient wisdom encapsulates the essence of radical responsibility. Focus relentlessly on what you can control and let go of the rest. The seventh and final principle of the victory mindset is purpose alignment. This is the practice of connecting your daily actions and challenges to a larger purpose that transcends immediate circumstances. When your efforts are aligned with a purpose greater than yourself, your capacity for persistence expands exponentially. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps during World War II, observed that those who were most likely to survive were not the physically strongest, but those who found meaning in their suffering. In his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "Those who have a why to live for can bear almost any how. Purpose functions as an inexhaustible fuel source for persistence. When you're connected to a clear and compelling why, setbacks that might otherwise seem devastating are transformed into temporary obstacles on a much longer journey." I once worked with a woman who had failed at 3 previous attempts to lose weight and improve her health. Each time, initial motivation would carry her for a few weeks before she reverted to old patterns. When I asked about her reasons for wanting to change, she gave the usual answers: to look better, to have more energy, to avoid health problems. We dug deeper, searching for a purpose that would sustain her through the inevitable difficult moments. Eventually, she connected her health journey to her deepest values as a mother. Her daughter was showing early signs of the same unhealthy relationship with food that had plagued her own life. She realized that transforming her habits wasn't just about her health. It was about modeling a different relationship with food and body for her daughter. This purpose alignment transformed her approach. When temptation struck, when the immediate gratification of comfort food called to her, she now had a why that was stronger than the momentary discomfort of saying no. 3 years later, she's maintained a 70-pound weight loss and, more importantly, her daughter is developing a healthy relationship with food. Purpose alignment answers the essential question: why must I persist when persistence is difficult? When your answer connects to your core values and transcends immediate self-interest, you tap into a wellspring of motivation that conventional goal setting can never access. These 7 principles: outcome independence, strategic suffering, identity evolution, strategic optimism, purposeful discomfort, radical responsibility, and purpose alignment, form the foundation of the victory mindset. Each principle represents a shift in thinking that expands your capacity to persist in the face of challenges. But understanding these principles intellectually isn't enough. To transform your mindset, you need specific practices that embed these principles into your daily life. In the next section, we'll explore these practices, actionable strategies that rewire your neural pathways and make the victory mindset your default operating system. Before we move on, take a moment to reflect. Which of these 7 principles resonates most strongly with you? Where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth in your thinking? Remember, awareness is the first step toward transformation. By recognizing the gaps in your current mindset, you've already begun the journey toward a new way of thinking. A mindset where giving up simply isn't an option. Now that we've explored the 7 principles of the victory mindset, let's dive into the practical strategies that transform these principles from intellectual concepts into lived experience. Because here's the truth: knowledge without action is just entertainment. Real transformation happens when you consistently apply these principles in your daily life. The first strategy I want to share with you is what I call victory visualization. This isn't the passive visualization often promoted in popular self-help literature. This is an active, multisensory mental rehearsal that prepares your mind and body for the challenges ahead. Elite athletes have used this technique for decades. Before ever setting foot on the field or court, they've already played the game thousands of times in their minds. They've visualized not just success, but the obstacles they'll face and how they'll overcome them. This mental rehearsal creates neural pathways that make the right responses more automatic when real challenges arise. Here's how to practice victory visualization. Set aside 10 minutes each morning. Close your eyes and imagine yourself facing a specific challenge that's currently in your life. See it vividly. The environment, the people involved, the emotions arising. Then, imagine yourself responding with the mindset of someone who never gives up. Feel the emotions you'd experience: determination, courage, focus. Visualize specific actions you'd take, words you'd say, thoughts you'd think. The key is to visualize not just the result, but the process of overcoming obstacles. This trains your brain to expect challenges and to have responses ready when they appear. As Muhammad Ali famously said, "The fight is won or lost far away from witnesses, behind the lines, in the gym, and out there on the road, long before I dance under those lights." The second strategy is what I call intentional adversity. This is the deliberate practice of doing hard things when you have a choice, so you're better prepared when hard things choose you. It's training for life's inevitable challenges. This might mean taking cold showers to practice managing discomfort, doing public speaking when it terrifies you, having difficult conversations you'd rather avoid, or pushing through the final set at the gym when your muscles are screaming to stop. Each of these experiences builds your adversity muscle, your capacity to function effectively while experiencing discomfort. Remember, the goal isn't suffering for suffering's sake. It's developing the mental calluses that make future challenges less daunting. It's expanding your comfort zone through deliberate exposure to manageable stress. One of my clients practices intentional adversity by fasting for 24 hours once a month. Is this necessary for his health? Not particularly, but it strengthens his belief that he can endure discomfort for a greater purpose. A belief that serves him when facing professional and personal challenges that require persistence. The third strategy is identity affirmations. Unlike traditional affirmations that often feel like wishful thinking, identity affirmations focus on who you're becoming rather than what you want to achieve. Their statements bridge the gap between your current self-perception and the identity you're evolving toward. Effective identity affirmations have three key characteristics. They feel slightly uncomfortable, stretching your current self-image. They focus on character rather than outcomes, and they use present progressive tense. I am becoming rather than I am. For example, rather than affirming, I am successful, which might feel inauthentic if you're struggling, you might say, I am becoming someone who sees opportunities in every challenge. Instead of I am confident, try, I am developing unshakable confidence through persistent action despite fear. This language acknowledges the journey while affirming the direction. It honors where you are while pulling you toward where you want to be. Practice speaking these identity affirmations aloud daily, ideally while looking in a mirror. The combination of hearing your voice and seeing your face as you speak these words creates a powerful impression on your subconscious mind. The fourth strategy is victory journaling. This is a specific form of written reflection designed to reinforce the patterns of thought characteristic of the victory mindset. Each evening, answer these four questions. What challenge did I face today? And how did my response reflect the mindset of someone who never gives up? What opportunity was hidden within a difficulty I encountered today? What did I learn about myself through today's challenges that will serve me in the future? How did I take responsibility for my responses today, rather than blaming external circumstances? This practice accomplishes several things simultaneously. It highlights your progress, reinforces the connection between challenges and growth, trains your mind to spot opportunities within difficulties, and strengthens your sense of agency. Over time, these questions become automatic, reshaping how you process daily experiences. The fifth strategy is language pattern disruption. The words you use, both in speech and in thought, don't just express your mindset, they create it. By consciously changing your language patterns, you can rewire your brain to support the victory mindset. Start by eliminating 3 phrases from your vocabulary. I can't, I have to, and I should. Replace them with I choose not to, I get to, and I want to. This simple shift transforms your relationship with your own decisions and circumstances. For example, instead of saying, I can't find the time to exercise, say, I'm choosing not to prioritize exercise right now. This acknowledges your agency in the situation. Rather than, I have to prepare this presentation, say, I get to prepare this presentation, recognizing the opportunity within the obligation. Instead of, I should network more, say, I want to expand my professional connections, connecting the action to your authentic desires. Language pattern disruption isn't about positive spin or denial of challenges. It's about using language that acknowledges your power of choice and redirects your focus toward possibilities rather than limitations. The sixth strategy is strategic questioning. The questions you habitually ask shape your focus and, consequently, your experience. Most people unconsciously ask disempowering questions when facing challenges. Why does this always happen to me? Why is this so hard? When will this be over? These questions direct your brain toward victim narratives, perceived injustices, and escape fantasies, none of which support persistence. Strategic questioning involves consciously replacing these default questions with ones that activate the victory mindset. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this preparing me for? Instead of, how can I get through this? Ask, how can I use this to grow stronger? Instead of, when will this challenge end? Ask, what opportunity is this challenge creating? Your brain is a problem-solving machine that will find answers to whatever questions you ask. By deliberately choosing questions that presuppose growth, opportunity, and agency, you direct your brain's immense power toward solutions rather than suffering. The seventh strategy is victory anchoring. This is a neuro-linguistic programming technique that creates an instant access point to your most resourceful state of mind. It works by establishing a physical trigger, like pressing your thumb and forefinger together, that becomes associated with the emotions and thought patterns of the victory mindset. To create this anchor, recall a time when you persisted through a significant challenge and ultimately succeeded. Reimagine this experience vividly. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt at the moment of breakthrough. As you experience these sensations at their peak, press your thumb and forefinger together firmly for about 5 seconds, then release. Repeat this process with several different success memories, always using the same physical trigger. After sufficient repetition, the neural pathways become established. When you intentionally activate the anchor by pressing your thumb and forefinger together, you'll access the emotional state associated with past persistence and success. This becomes a powerful tool during challenging moments when your mindset might otherwise deteriorate. The eighth strategy is possibility scanning. This is the deliberate practice of identifying and cataloging potential resources, alternatives, and opportunities, especially when facing apparent dead ends. It's a systematic approach to developing the strategic optimism we discussed earlier. Here's how it works. When confronting a challenge that seems insurmountable, set a timer for 10 minutes and brainstorm answers to these questions. Who might help me with this challenge that I haven't yet asked? What skills or resources do I already possess that could be applied in a new way? What would this situation look like from the perspective of someone I admire? If my current approach is blocked, what 3 alternative paths might lead to a similar outcome? What opportunity might exist within this challenge that I'm currently overlooking? The key is to generate as many possibilities as you can without immediately judging their feasibility. This practice expands your perception of available options and counteracts the tunnel vision that often accompanies stress. One client used possibility scanning when his dream job fell through at the last minute. Instead of remaining fixated on the lost opportunity, he identified 15 alternative career paths, 3 of which he hadn't previously considered. One of these alternatives eventually led to a position that proved more aligned with his values and strengths than the original dream job would have been. The ninth strategy is victory networking. This involves deliberately surrounding yourself with people who embody the victory mindset, who expect persistence from themselves and others, and who respond to setbacks with resilience rather than resignation. We naturally adopt the mental patterns of those around us. If you're immersed in an environment where giving up is normalized, where complaints, blame, and defeatism are the standard currencies of conversation, developing a victory mindset becomes exponentially harder. Seek out individuals and communities that normalize persistence. This doesn't mean toxic positivity or denial of challenges. It means finding people who acknowledge difficulties while maintaining a fundamental commitment to finding a way forward. If you can't immediately change your physical environment, create a virtual one. Listen to podcasts, read books, and watch videos featuring individuals who exemplify the victory mindset. Subscribe to newsletters that reinforce these thought patterns. Join online communities focused on growth and resilience. The 10th and final strategy is purpose reconnection. This is a practice for those inevitable moments when motivation flags, when the path seems too long or too difficult, when the temptation to give up is strongest. It's a deliberate reconnection to the deeper purpose that makes persistence meaningful. Create a purpose statement that articulates why persisting through challenges matters to you. This statement should connect to your core values and extend beyond immediate self-interest. It might reference the impact you want to have on others, the example you want to set, the contribution you want to make, or the legacy you want to leave. Write this purpose statement on a card you carry with you, or save it as the wallpaper on your phone. In moments of doubt or fatigue, read it aloud. Let it remind you that what you're doing matters, that your persistence serves something larger than the immediate discomfort or obstacle. One client, a medical researcher facing a particularly difficult setback in her work, kept a photo of her late sister, who had died from the disease she was researching. In moments when continuing seemed impossible, she would look at this photo, her tangible reconnection to purpose, and find the strength to take one more step forward. These 10 strategies, victory visualization, intentional adversity, identity affirmations, victory journaling, language pattern disruption, strategic questioning, victory anchoring, possibility scanning, victory networking, and purpose reconnection, provide a practical framework for developing the victory mindset. Each strategy reinforces the 7 principles we explored earlier, creating a comprehensive approach to building mental toughness and resilience. But here's what's crucial to understand. These aren't techniques to use only when facing major challenges. They're practices to incorporate into your daily life, creating mental habits that become your default way of responding to adversity on any scale. Just as physical fitness requires consistent training rather than occasional intense efforts, mental resilience develops through daily practice. The victory mindset isn't something you activate only in crisis. It's a perspective you cultivate continuously, building the mental equivalent of a strong immune system that can handle whatever challenges life presents. As you implement these strategies, you'll begin to notice subtle shifts in how you respond to difficulties. The reflexive thoughts of defeat or escape will start to be replaced by questions of possibility and purpose. The instinctive emotional reactions of fear or frustration will be tempered by a deeper confidence in your capacity to endure and overcome. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. Like any substantive change, it unfolds gradually, sometimes imperceptibly. There will be days when the old patterns reassert themselves, when the victory mindset feels distant or inaccessible. This is normal. Progress isn't linear. It's cyclical, with advances and retreats, peaks and valleys. The key is persistence in the practice itself. Applying the victory mindset to the very process of developing a victory mindset. When you notice yourself slipping into old patterns of thought, Simply acknowledge it without judgment and gently redirect yourself toward these strategies. Each time you do this, you strengthen the neural pathways that support the new mindset. Remember, what you're building isn't just a set of techniques for handling life's challenges. You're developing a fundamentally different relationship with adversity itself. You're evolving toward a mindset where obstacles aren't annoying interruptions in your journey, but essential components of it. Where difficulties aren't barriers to success, but prerequisites for meaningful achievement. As the philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb observes in his concept of anti-fragility, certain systems don't just withstand stress and disruption. They benefit from it, growing stronger in response to volatility and challenge. The victory mindset is the human embodiment of anti-fragility, a way of engaging with life's challenges that transforms them from threats into catalysts for growth. In the next section, we'll explore how to apply the victory mindset to specific domains of life: career, relationships, health, and personal development, adapting these principles and strategies to address the unique challenges in each area. But first, pause to consider. Which of these strategies resonates most strongly with you? Which could you begin implementing today? Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your transformation starts with one practice, one decision, one moment of choosing persistence when giving up seems easier. Now that we've explored both the principles and strategies of the victory mindset, let's examine how this approach transforms specific areas of life. Because resilience isn't one size fits all. The challenges you face in your career differ from those in your health journey, your relationships, or your personal growth. Understanding how to adapt these principles to different domains gives you versatility and precision in applying the victory mindset. Let's start with your career. Professional life is fertile ground for challenges that test your resilience. Rejection, failure, competition, uncertainty, and constant change. How does the victory mindset transform your approach to these challenges? First, it reframes career setbacks as data points rather than defining moments. When you're passed over for a promotion, lose a client, or fail at a new venture, the victory mindset doesn't interpret these events as verdicts on your worth or potential. Instead, they become valuable information that refines your approach moving forward. I worked with an executive who had been fired from a high-profile position. When we first met, he was devastated, interpreting the firing as definitive proof of his inadequacy as a leader. His identity had become entangled with this single outcome, creating a narrative of personal failure that threatened to derail his entire career. Through applying the victory mindset, he began to separate his identity from this event. We used identity affirmations to reinforce his self-image as someone who learns and grows from every experience, rather than someone who failed. We practiced radical responsibility, focusing not on the unfairness of his termination, but on how he could respond constructively. Through victory journaling, he identified skills and insights gained from the challenging experience that would serve him in future roles. 18 months later, he was leading a division at a competitor company, performing better than ever. The experience that had initially seemed like a career-ending catastrophe had ultimately made him a more self-aware, resilient leader. As he told me later, getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to my career. Not despite how painful it was, but because of it. The victory mindset also transforms how you approach career plateaus. Those periods when progress seems stalled, motivation wanes, and the path forward appears unclear. Rather than interpreting these plateaus as permanent limitations, the victory mindset sees them as preparation phases for the next leap forward. Consider the strategy of possibility scanning during career plateaus. Instead of fixating on the blocked path ahead, you expand your vision to recognize opportunities in unexpected directions. Perhaps the direct promotion isn't available, but could you create a new position that leverages your unique strengths? Maybe advancing within your current company seems impossible, but what parallel moves might eventually lead to greater advancement? The victory mindset also transforms how you navigate professional relationships. In any organization, interpersonal dynamics can create significant challenges. Difficult bosses, competitive colleagues, team conflict, and CTS. Most people respond to these challenges either passively, enduring the difficult relationship while growing increasingly resentful, or destructively, engaging in power struggles or workplace politics. The victory mindset offers a third way. By applying strategic optimism, you focus not on the personality clash, but on the opportunity it presents to develop diplomatic skills, emotional intelligence, and conflict resolution abilities. Through radical responsibility, you concentrate on your contribution to the dynamic rather than blaming the other person. With purpose alignment, you connect your handling of difficult relationships to your larger professional goals and values. I remember working with a talented software developer who was constantly at odds with her project manager. Their communication styles and work approaches were fundamentally different, creating ongoing friction. Initially, she saw only two options: continue in misery or find another job. But applying the victory mindset revealed a third path. Instead of seeing the difficult relationship as an obstacle to her success, she reframed it as an opportunity to develop communication skills that would serve her throughout her career. She practiced intentional adversity by initiating difficult conversations rather than avoiding them. Through strategic questioning, she stopped asking, "Why is this person so difficult?" and started asking, "What can I learn from this challenging dynamic?" Over time, not only did the relationship improve, but she developed leadership capabilities that led to her eventual promotion to a senior role. The challenge that had seemed like a barrier to her success became the very catalyst for her professional growth. Let's shift our focus now to personal health and physical well-being, another area where the victory mindset creates transformative results. Health challenges often test our resilience in profound ways. Whether you're recovering from injury or illness, making significant lifestyle changes, or pursuing ambitious fitness goals, the path is rarely smooth or straightforward. Most people approach health challenges with initial enthusiasm that wanes at the first sign of difficulty or when progress plateaus. The victory mindset fundamentally changes this pattern by embracing strategic suffering, understanding that temporary discomfort is not just an unavoidable part of the process, but essential to the outcome. I worked with an individual recovering from a severe back injury who faced a long, painful rehabilitation process. The physical therapy exercises were uncomfortable, progress was painfully slow, and there were numerous setbacks. His initial approach was to minimize discomfort, doing just enough to get by, avoiding the most challenging exercises, seeking shortcuts. Through adopting the victory mindset, he began to see the discomfort itself as valuable, as evidence that he was growing stronger. He practiced purposeful discomfort, deliberately going to the edge of his capacity in each session. He used victory anchoring to access his most determined mental state when the pain made him want to quit. He established victory networking by connecting with others who had overcome similar injuries, normalizing both the struggle and the persistence required. The rehabilitation that doctors initially estimated would take 18 months was completed in 12. More importantly, he emerged not just with a recovered body, but with a transformed relationship to challenge itself, a victory mindset that transferred to other areas of his life. This approach applies equally to lifestyle changes related to nutrition, exercise, or any aspect of physical well-being. The victory mindset acknowledges that results aren't linear, that plateaus and setbacks are inevitable, and that sustainable transformation requires a fundamentally different relationship with discomfort and difficulty. When it comes to relationships, whether romantic partnerships, family dynamics, or deep friendships, The victory mindset offers powerful tools for navigating the inevitable challenges that arise. All meaningful relationships encounter periods of conflict, distance, or difficulty. The difference between relationships that collapse under these pressures and those that become stronger is often found in the mindset with which challenges are approached. The principle of outcome independence is particularly powerful in relationship contexts. Many people enter difficult relationship conversations with rigid expectations about how the other person should respond, creating a binary success or failure dynamic. The victory mindset releases these rigid expectations while maintaining commitment to the relationship itself, creating space for unexpected resolutions and deeper understanding. A couple I worked with was experiencing significant conflict around financial priorities. Traditional approaches to conflict resolution hadn't worked. Each conversation devolved into the same cyclical arguments, with both partners becoming increasingly entrenched in their positions. Each saw the situation as a zero-sum game. Either their financial priorities would prevail, or their partners would. Through applying the victory mindset, they shifted from position-based thinking to purpose-based thinking. Rather than focusing narrowly on specific financial decisions, they reconnected to the deeper purpose of their financial life together: security, joy, meaningful experiences, legacy. This purpose alignment created a context for their disagreements that transformed them from threats to their relationship into shared problems to solve together. They practiced language pattern disruption, eliminating phrases like "you always" and "you never" that reinforced patterns of blame. They used strategic questioning, replacing "why don't you see how important this is?" with "what concerns do you have that I might not fully understand?" Through victory journaling, they documented small breakthroughs, reinforcing the progress that can be overlooked in the heat of conflict. The financial disagreements that had threatened to tear them apart became the catalyst for a more mature, nuanced partnership. As one partner reflected later, "We didn't just solve the money issues. We developed a completely new way of handling conflict. The problem that could have ended our marriage ended up saving it." Personal growth and self-development represent another domain where the victory mindset creates extraordinary results. Whether you're developing new skills, overcoming limiting beliefs, or working toward meaningful goals, the path inevitably includes failures, plateaus, and moments of doubt. How you respond to these challenges determines whether you'll achieve sustainable growth or join the ranks of those who start strong but fade at the first sign of difficulty. The principle of identity evolution is particularly relevant here. Many personal development efforts fail not because of a lack of knowledge or technique, but because they conflict with deeply held identity beliefs. When your conscious goals, "I want to become proficient in public speaking," clash with subconscious identity stories, "I'm naturally shy and not meant for the spotlight," the subconscious narrative usually wins. Through deliberate identity evolution, you bridge this gap, creating transitional identities that allow authentic growth while respecting your current self-concept. Instead of jumping from "I'm shy" to "I'm a dynamic public speaker," a leap too great to be believable to your subconscious mind, you might adopt intermediate identities like "I'm someone who values communication enough to push through discomfort," or "I'm becoming increasingly comfortable sharing my ideas with groups." The strategy of intentional adversity also transforms personal development. Rather than waiting for challenges to find you, you deliberately seek experiences at the edge of your comfort zone, building the mental calluses that make future challenges less daunting. The person who regularly practices speaking to small groups finds it less terrifying to address a large audience when the opportunity arises. The individual who intentionally engages in difficult conversations develops emotional resilience that serves them when conflicts inevitably emerge. I worked with a young professional who wanted to develop leadership capabilities, but was paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes visible to others. Her natural intelligence had always allowed her to excel in individual contributor roles where she could perfect her work before sharing it. But leadership required learning publicly, making decisions with imperfect information, and risking visible failure. Through the victory mindset, she began practicing intentional adversity, volunteering for presentations, speaking up more in meetings, taking on panned projects where she wasn't already an expert. Sheen used victory visualization to mentally rehearse handling criticism and setbacks with grace. Through victory journaling, she documented each small act of courage, creating evidence that contradicted her fear-based identity story. Over time, her relationship with potential failure transformed. What had once seemed like threats to her identity became opportunities to model authentic leadership. The fear didn't disappear. She still experienced anxiety when stepping into challenging situations, but her capacity to act despite that fear expanded dramatically. As she told me later, "I used to think leadership meant not being afraid. Now I understand it means being afraid and moving forward anyway." The victory mindset also transforms how you approach spiritual and existential challenges. Periods of doubt, crises of meaning, or profound questions about purpose and direction. These interior struggles can be among the most difficult to navigate because they lack clear metrics for progress and often feel isolating or untethered. Through purpose alignment, you connect daily actions to your deepest values even when the larger questions remain unresolved. Strategic optimism allows you to focus on what remains clear even amid uncertainty. Radical responsibility empowers you to create meaning rather than waiting for it to appear externally. A client experiencing a profound spiritual crisis described it as the ground falling away beneath my feet. Long-held beliefs no longer felt true, but no new framework had yet emerged to replace them. He felt paralyzed, unable to make decisions or move forward without the certainty he had previously relied upon. Through the victory mindset, he reframed this period not as a catastrophic loss of foundation, but as a necessary dismantling that would enable authentic rebuilding. He practiced strategic questioning, replacing "Why is this happening to me?" with what might be trying to emerge in my life through this difficulty. Through victory networking, he connected with others who had navigated similar transitions, normalizing both the discomfort and the potential for growth within it. Over time, he developed a more nuanced relationship with certainty itself, a capacity to act meaningfully even amid questions and unknowns. The crisis that had initially seemed like a spiritual dead end became a doorway to a more authentic, examined life. As we examine these various domains, career, health, relationships, personal growth, spiritual development, a pattern emerges. The victory mindset doesn't eliminate challenges or guarantee specific outcomes in any area. What it offers is a fundamentally different relationship with the challenges themselves, transforming how you perceive and respond to the inevitable difficulties that arise on any meaningful journey. This mindset shift has a compound effect over time. Each challenge, successfully navigated, builds confidence for the next one. Each setback, transformed into a stepping stone, creates evidence that contradicts limiting beliefs. Each moment of choosing persistence when giving up seems easier, strengthening the neural pathways that make resilience your default response. The result isn't just better outcomes in specific situations. It's a profound transformation in your entire relationship with adversity. A shift from seeing challenges as threats to recognizing them as catalysts for your evolution. It's the development of what I call challenge immunity. Not in the sense of avoiding difficulties, but in developing such robust responses to them that they no longer have the power to derail you. This is the ultimate gift of the victory mindset. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of something within you that is larger than any problem you'll ever face. It's the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life presents. Not because you control external circumstances, but because you've mastered your internal responses to them. As Winston Churchill, who embodied the victory mindset throughout his life, and especially during Britain's darkest hours in World War II, powerfully stated, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." The victory mindset is, at its core, the development of this courage. The capacity to continue despite fear, uncertainty, setbacks, and challenges of every kind. But this mindset isn't developed through wishful thinking or mere inspiration. It's forged through deliberate practice, through the consistent application of the principles and strategies we've explored. It's built decision by decision, moment by moment, challenge by challenge, as you choose the harder path of persistence when the easier path of surrender presents itself. I want to leave you with a visualization that captures the essence of the victory mindset. Imagine yourself standing on a mountain path. Behind you is the terrain you've already traversed, the challenges overcome, the setbacks navigated, the moments when you chose to persist rather than abandon the journey. Ahead of you lies the path still to be traveled, with its own peaks and valleys, obstacles and opportunities. Now, imagine yourself encountering a particularly daunting obstacle on the path ahead. A sheer rock face that seems impossible to climb, a chasm too wide to cross, a storm that obscures the way forward. Feel the initial response of fear, doubt, perhaps even despair. These feelings are normal, human, and inevitable. But then, something shifts. You remember who you are becoming. Someone who never gives up, not out of stubbornness, but out of a deep understanding that persistence is the ultimate competitive advantage. You recall the challenges already overcome, the internal resources developed through facing previous adversities. You reconnect to the purpose that makes this journey meaningful beyond the immediate difficulty. And with this remembering, your perception transforms. The obstacle remains, just as real, just as challenging, but now you see it differently. Where before you saw only a barrier, now you recognize an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, more capable. The question shifts from "Can I overcome this?" to "How will I overcome this?" From "Should I continue?" to "How will I continue?" This perception shift doesn't guarantee immediate success. The rock face may still take days to climb. The chasm might require building a bridge one plank at a time, and the storm could necessitate waiting or finding an alternate route. But what has changed is your relationship with the challenge itself. From adversary to teacher, from threat to opportunity. This is the victory mindset in action. And just as a physical muscle grows stronger through resistance, this mental capacity grows stronger each time you choose to engage with challenges rather than avoid them. Each difficult conversation you initiate, each setback you respond to with strategic optimism, each moment of discomfort you lean into rather than away from. All of these strengthen the neural pathways that make resilience your default response. So, as you move forward from here, remember that developing a victory mindset isn't about eliminating challenges from your life. It's about transforming your relationship with those challenges. It's about becoming the kind of person who sees opportunities where others see obstacles, who finds paths where others see only roadblocks, and who keeps moving forward when others retreat. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It unfolds one decision at a time, one challenge at a time, one moment at a time, as you choose the harder path of persistence when the easier path of surrender presents itself. But with each of these choices, you're not just addressing the immediate situation. You're rewiring your brain to make resilience your default response. As you practice the principles and strategies we've explored, outcome independence, strategic suffering, identity evolution, strategic optimism, purposeful discomfort, radical responsibility, purpose alignment, and the practical techniques that embed these principles into your daily life, you're developing something infinitely more valuable than solutions to specific problems. You're cultivating a mindset that will serve you in every challenge you face. An internal operating system that transforms obstacles into opportunities. Remember, the ultimate measure of your life will not be found in the absence of problems, but in your response to them. It will be revealed in those critical moments when continuing seems impossible, when the evidence suggests surrender is rational, when the easier path of giving up presents itself, and you choose to take one more step forward. This is the essence of the victory mindset. Not the denial of difficulty, but the transcendence of it. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it. Not the elimination of obstacles, but the transformation of your relationship with them. So I challenge you, start today. Choose one principle from what we've discussed and apply it to a current challenge in your life. Practice one strategy consistently for the next 30 days. Begin the process of rewiring your neural pathways to make resilience your default response. The path might not be easy, but I promise you this. On the other side of persistence lies a version of yourself that you've always been capable of becoming. Someone who sees challenges not as threats, but as invitations to grow. Not as barriers, but as gateways to your highest potential. The victory mindset is already within you, waiting to be activated. The capacity to persevere is your birthright as a human being. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is, will you claim it? Will you develop it? Will you become the person who never gives up? Not out of stubbornness or denial, but out of a profound understanding that persistence is the ultimate path to transformation. The choice is yours, and that choice, made in this moment and in countless moments to come, will determine not just what you achieve but who you become. Choose wisely. Choose courageously. Choose the victory mindset. Thank you for joining me on this journey to your victory mindset. Now it's your move. Share this video with someone who needs a boost, hit like if you feel inspired, and subscribe so you won't miss our next success secrets. Take action today and conquer your goals.